Welcome back to the Getting to Know You podcast. I'm joined today by a man that's been in the trucking industry for almost 25 years and beyond that from childhood, Mr. Jacob Kosiara, the Senior Vice President of Ingram Logistics Services. Jacob, thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Tim. I really do appreciate you having me on today.
Well, let's begin a little bit out of order from my usual. Tell me a little bit about Ingram Logistics Services.
So Ingram Logistics Services was started a few years back as an ancillary service to Ingram Barge Company. And again, over the years, we've progressed and began to offer different types of services outside of the core business of what Ingram Barge is. And again, for most people know Ingram as Ingram Barge Company. Ingram Logistics serves as an intermediary for air shipments, for domestic trucking shipments, and for international ocean shipments. So we move freight via air, boat, and truck currently. We do that both domestically and internationally.
And how's the project coming along, and where's the future look like?
Sure. So the project, like most right now, it's been a down year. And again, during COVID, things were very good. Business was very strong. The industry as a whole experienced something that I think we may never see again in terms of capacity restraints, the cost of goods, the cost to move goods, the ability to get something moved from A to B, and the challenges that were associated with it. And again, all of those things, have a cost to it. Where we go in the future, there's a lot of things that we can do. I think again, too, is getting back to the core of why we're here, and really being able to align ourselves along the river lines from a domestic product, and being able to anchor ourselves with our barge cohorts as well, and try to gain some synergy there and build capacity and be able to offer different services to our current customers. On the international side, again, from we're a freight forwarder, so we're able to process paperwork and move goods in and out of the country, as well as an MVOCC, so we can act as the carrier as well. Longer term play there could be to align ourselves with what we do on the brown water and the blue water. So that's kind of the thought process as we head into 24. And again, we'll see where things lie, but again, it's just, I don't think I think a lot of people knew that 23 would come at some point, but again, this industry is ever growing, and the more that we consume goods as here in the US and across the world, there will always be a need for our services.
We all hope so, indeed. Well, all these programs normally begin with where you were born. So let's back up a few years and start right there, sir. Please tell me, where were you born?
Shoot, it's not a few years. First and foremost, it was a long time ago. It was funny when I first started here. I actually brought in my original birth certificate, and it is yellow, and it may fall apart if you touch it. Very funny, but long time ago, I was born in the south suburbs of Chicago. My family, a few generations before me, immigrated from Poland, and came over to Chicago. And again, a lot of them cut their teeth and establish roots on the south and east side of the city, both working in steel mills and in construction throughout the Chicagoland area.
Tell me about your childhood in Chicago.
I always tell folks, I had a great childhood. And when you see the things that you see on social media and all the things that are going on in the world today, we lived in a very small, tight-knit community. My family was very heavily involved in a lot of different things, from from the school systems all the way to sports activities and other activities around the city that we grew up in, and really enjoyed it. I had a really tight group of friends. We lived in the same neighborhood all the way through. Shoot, I think I was 2 years old to when I was a senior in high school, and then my parents migrated out to Northwest Indiana. But I was heavily involved in sports as a baseball and basketball player, and it truly was a time where during the summers you woke up, you ate breakfast, and you left, and you came home when it got dark. That's really how we operated, or if we had a different activity. And it was a really diverse area as well. Being in Chicago or being outside of it, all walks of life, rich, poor, a lot of that different ethnicities. So again, I'm really lucky to have experienced that, because again, I think it's maybe a little bit of who I was. It wasn't the easiest place to live. There was tough parts of it as well, and you learned a little bit. And like I said, I mean, there wasn't very many places like it, and I really did enjoy my childhood.
Well, aside from sports, were you drawn to anything else in school academically?
The fun fact, I mean, I was a spelling bee champ in fourth grade. I did well in school, early on. Really enjoyed it, really gravitated towards anything that was related to English and literature and reading. I always wanted, I think my dream job uh, outside of wanting to be a baseball player was, or a basketball player, was to write or broadcast. But that never came to fruition. I think I got to college and that's what I wanted to do. And I got involved in the radio side of the business, or radio side of the college that I went to. And shortly after that, getting put on a crappy shift, I decided this wasn't going to be for me. It wasn't in the cards. So.
Well, I was in fact the spelling bee champion of second grade back in the day. But that aside, tell me about your experience in radio.
Yeah, I mean, just again, I really gravitated towards these types of things. Writing and literature and broadcasting is just it was something that really excited me growing up. We're from Chicago, so the sports personalities there growing up, Harry Carey, um, Ken Harrelson, Steve Stone, um, Jim Durham used to call Bulls games and stuff like that. The guys that called the Bears games, Johnny Morris, those guys were amazing, and they were really good at their craft and really excitable, really, really went after the home team. And for whatever reason, I just wanted to get involved in that. And so when it came down to when I got into high school and I finished a lot of my core classes, I thought I'd screw around a little bit with journalism, as an elective. I could only take so many gym classes. And I really started enjoying what I was doing there. And so when I went away to school, I thought I'd be an English major, maybe a teacher. But I wanted to get into that side of broadcast communications. And but again, like I said, shortly after, those graveyard shifts were something that, based off of my workload, my schedule, and I played a couple of sports in college. Just wasn't it didn't work. It wasn't feasible. So.
Well, I know you mentioned you sort of grew up in the trucking industry. What did your parents do for a living?
Yeah, so my mom was a stay-at-home mom for as long as I ever knew, and we were very fortunate and very lucky to have that, and have her around and help us, with all the things that we needed as children. But my dad started off his career as a steel worker. And again, he was in college, and he had met my mom, and they were dating, Shortly after, she became pregnant with me, and my dad knew that at that point that college was not going to be feasible, and he needed to get into the workforce. And again, being there was a few generations that worked in the steel mills, and he got involved in that. And over a period of time, it's hard work. Labor wasn't easy, and the working of shifts was not an easy lifestyle for him. Shortly after I was born, my mom became pregnant with my middle brother. So again, working 3 11s one day, and then 11 midnights the next week, and 7 day shifts. One week. It was just a tough schedule to balance. So he wanted to stay in the industry. He was very passionate about uh, the steel business, and enjoyed it, and enjoyed seeing what the products that were being made, what they were turned into. And he got himself into a position where he began dispatching trucks for the steel mill that he worked for. Earned that job, and after a while, he really fell in love with the business and the different aspects of it, and getting something from point A to point B, and understanding that. And then he had a mentor take him under his wing from another trucking company who ultimately hired him. So we went from the manufacturing side to the actual service side of it, and really fell even more in love with it. Because again, when you think about it, if you're working at a plant or a facility, you only know one aspect of it. It's I'm either A, the shipper, or B, I'm the receiver. And I need to make sure that I get my product from my facility to another, or I need to be able to receive it. And here he was able to learn a lot about all aspects of the business, from sales point of view, from operations, safety, all the accounting things, and all these things, really he really enjoyed. And again, over time, he advanced himself through a few different places, and ultimately ended up owning and operating his own. And then over the past, I would say 15 years, he's been doing a lot of consulting for folks. So, he kind of paved the way for how I got involved in it. I loved learning about everything about the business. And I think some of the key takeaways that I got were, we would always say, on a road trip, or anytime we got caught in a traffic jam, these trucks, they're killing us. They're the ones that are causing the problems, et cetera, et cetera. And it would always resonate with me that my dad would say, do you know that this vehicle is made from products that are hauled on those trucks? Do you know the food you eat is delivered by those trucks? Do you know that the clothes that you wear is shipped from those trucks? And it got me thinking about, how things get from point A to point B, and how fun it would be to be a part of that. And again, that's how I got involved. And again, in the late 90s, technology was not a thing either within the industry. So that part intrigued me as well, to advance. I always think of transportation as a puzzle, a big puzzle, and trying to putting things together. And the ability to do that really intrigued me. But again, as I got into it in the late 90s, technology was just coming out, and my dad's company was starting to use a little bit of it. And again, we weren't able to, or I wasn't able to afford a computer at the time. And to the ability to go use one for 6 or 7 hours. I mean, for a second, that was very, very cool. But then again, like I said, is just the evolution and trying to put pieces together um, was something that really got me involved. And again, was really inspired by the successes that my dad had throughout his career, and I wanted to be able to pave or create those same successes throughout mine.
What was his business model?
Yeah, I mean, they were heavily involved in steel transport. So again, they contracted with a lot of the major steel corporations throughout Northwest Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, West Virginia. Their business model was founded on own a few assets of their own, um, and again is operate in that we call it the Rust Belt, right? So operate in that vicinity. Don't go west of the Mississippi. Um, don't go any further south than Atlanta. Stay west of Pittsburgh. And it kind of circled around that. And his business model also, they didn't hire their sales force wasn't employee based. These were independent contractors. You paid them a percentage. You moved the freight. You supplied the trucks. And again, is these folks that he would hire and subcontract with, were connected in the industry, just like he was. But again, he took his career just a step further as a um, owning and operating equipment, whereas a lot of his folks were salespeople throughout. And these were people that he had built relationships with throughout his early on in his career. So,
And did you get your start in the industry with him?
yeah, it's a funny story. I mean, well, I don't even know. I mean, I can go further back, but I mean, it's funny. I used to work in my summers during my college years at his place, and I remember the first year I went back, there was a lady that worked in accounting. I was walking around and I was doing an accounting internship, and she came up to me and she says, "Now, which one are you?" And I said, "Jacob." And she says, "Oh my gosh." She goes, "I haven't seen you in years." She goes, "Last time I seen you, I probably changed your diapers." And it was embarrassing, but at the same time, it was like, that's how long I've been around the around the business. Um, when I graduated school, I didn't want to move home quite yet. And one of the things that I didn't want was I wanted to kind of create my own pathway. Um, I guess my own legacy, so to speak. So when I graduated, I went to work for a steel service center, very similar to what my dad did out of school, or well, uh, shortly after he stopped working in the mills. And I worked for a steel service center, and I managed their traffic department um, right out of school. So that's where I got started in the industry. And then, you know, 2001, September 11th hit. Uh, that business took a really big hit when the economy shifted. Um, I made an early mistake in my career, and I'm not. I'll say it. I was fired for saying something that I shouldn't, or asking a question that I shouldn't have. And unfortunately, that's what it was. And I kind of pussed around a little bit, at home. Um, and then I started working for my dad shortly after that. And so maybe about 2 years into my career, that's when I started doing that.
Well, where did you attend college and what was your degree in?
Yeah, North Central College in Naperville, Illinois. My degree was in business management.
Where did your career take you next?
Yeah, so I worked, like I said, I worked for my dad starting in 2001 or 2002, uh, towards the tail end of I think it was towards the tail end of 2001. And worked there for a little bit. About a year went by, and they had a need to build some technology. And they had been operating out of an old system. Technology was getting better and better. They wanted to be able to manage out of one system. Um, they wanted to kind of digitize some of the things that they were doing. A lot of paper was involved. I mean, and that's, you know, my winters typically were spent moving year-end boxes, and I mean multiple boxes, because the DOT requires you to keep so many files on hand for a certain period of time. So again, they wanted to digitize a lot of this. And the same gentleman that mentored my dad, his son had gotten involved in the industry, and he had created a software program. And at the time, my dad and his partner had engaged with them, and they said, listen, you two can partner up on this. You build this system, you make it work for us, and we'll go forward. And they bought the system. So for about a year and a half, I really worked on this project and getting it right, making from a CRM all the way to us receiving cash. We built this program and all the specialties that we needed, and all the customization that we needed. So it was specifically tailored to this business. And after we had built it, we were getting ready for launch date, and they decided to cut half of it out. They didn't take the administrative side, the accounting side, which was very important. And so they decided not to take that on, and I was very frustrated. I spent a lot of time, and I was very proud of what we did. And the gentleman who I was working side by side with, he had owned a truck brokerage. And back in 2001, 2, 3, truck brokers were was a very dirty word. People would go in and out of business. A lot of fraud, a lot of bad things were happening in the industry. People didn't know a lot about it. It wasn't really a good way to, good medium to promote your services. And he says, we built this thing. We can build it within my organization. And I really want to change the perception of transportation brokers throughout the industry. I want to be ethical. A lot of bad things are happening. And I was sold on that, but I didn't want to leave. And that project getting cut was my tipping point. So shortly after that project was cut, I think I was living at home at the time. I think I moved back home, and I just remember that being the most awkward dinner in a very long time, and saying, "Hey, I think I'm leaving the company, and we go start doing this." And Dad's like, "You can go do what you want. You have to go tell your boss." And I had a different boss than him, and that guy was more intimidating than my dad, and having to tell him was very difficult for me. But I muddled through it. I got through it, and went to go work for a company called Raytrans. So from 2003 to 2009, I worked there, and did a lot of good things. Again, our business model was based off of agents that were our sales force, and we were the back office support. So we did all the dispatching, we did all the finding of the trucks. We were a truck brokerage solely, focusing on flatbed. And we did all the back office work, all the dispatch. We provided our software system, and I started there as a trainer of the system. And what we would do is we'd sign on these salespeople. We'd teach them. I'd travel all over to teach them how to do that. And I think when I first came in, we were just under about $4 million in sales, and we about 2008, before the financial crisis hit, we were just shy under 40 million in sales, and we had built at our peak, I think we had 32 offices across the country, and we had expanded from just flatbed to truckload and refrigerated freight as well. Done a lot of cool things through that. And shortly after that, the company was sold to Echo Global Logistics. So Echo Global was one of the the top 5 transportation brokers in the country. So I was there for a couple of years and transitioning our team out of our system to theirs, and uh, really getting them to understand the capabilities that Echo had, and trying to find some synergy there. And again, in the end, it wasn't a thing that I wanted to do long term. Echo was a huge company. They were based in the city. I didn't see a lot of growth opportunity. I was still young. I wanted to get back on the asset side for a minute, I thought. And, that didn't come to fruition. And I ended up going to work for another big broker based in the Chicagoland area. Uh, they were TSG at the time, and they changed their name to what they're now is Redwood Logistics. So I started up their flatbed division. Was there for a few years. Some things happened, personally for my family. I had my first son at the time. My wife had lost her mother, during that same time, and an opportunity came to me in Michigan. And my wife, I think it was good for us, and it was good for my wife to make a move, and made it up out in Michigan. And I worked for another transportation broker as their VP of Ops, and they serviced tier 1 and tier 2 automotive suppliers for the big 3 primarily. And this is where I really cut my teeth, and then understanding a little bit about expedite and truckload, LTL, warehousing. And it's funny, this was when I was going through the process of coming on board here. They had asked me about international, and I said, yeah, I know international. I know Canada. I know Mexico, from what we did there. So that wasn't the international that we do today at ILS. But again, is getting to understand that. And then we moved back around 20, oh gosh, the dates are, COVID really screws that up, around 2016, 2017. And I found a company called Candor that I worked for up until this year, startup company from the ground up. And really learned the expedited side of the business, and really interesting time. We needed to get back to Chicago. We had 3 kids at the time, 3 toddlers, or no friends, no family. My work family was my peer group. It was very difficult for us to get out and do different things, being so far away. So again, backtracking, getting back, we wanted to get back to Chicago. Ended up at Candor. And we did a lot of good things there. We grew the business from nothing to about 15 million, where we finished, I think in 22. And again, learned a lot of different things, worked with some freight forwarders, worked with shippers, moved a lot of cool products, a lot of stressful nights, a lot of updating to a customer. Expedite has a whole new set of rules that we're not accustomed to here, as far as moving freight on the blue water. So it was fun. It was interesting. It ran its course, and this opportunity came about, and I'm here today since May of this year. So.
Well, if a certain organization wanted to start a trucking brokerage, what does the framework look like to get that thing off the ground?
A lot of things. I mean, the biggest thing is discipline. Finding something that you're good at. I think the biggest thing is finding a niche, finding something that you can excel in, and you may stumble across some other things you never even imagined that you were. But it's interesting because some people go into it with the mindset of like, I have the customers, I can crush this. I know shippers, I know manufacturers. I can get in, I can get all of their freight. but they don't understand the other side of it, and that's the operational. You have capacity that you have to fill at that point. Uh, and then there's others that really understand the capacity side. I know truckers, I can speak their language, I can do this, I can do that. Um, so, with that said, I think, anybody that tries to get in this industry is it's a balancing act. I think it's really find what your niche is, find out what you're going to be good at, stick to that. You may stumble, like I said, you may stumble across other things that you can become good at, but don't lose your focus. Um, and then understand both sides of the fence, because again, you can't operate without a customer. You can't operate without the trucker either. So it's a balancing act to make sure that everybody's happy. And again, you're solving a problem. Back in the day, when I first got involved in this industry, shippers and manufacturers had people to go out and find truckers all over America, you know, and then as the economy or as companies get uh, more compact and consolidate more, we're like, we need to focus on what we do best. So I use the steel example. If you're a steel manufacturer, you don't want to spend the time and the effort becoming the transportation provider as well. So those divisions or those departments within an organization got very much consolidated. And again, that's where our industry really took off in terms of transportation brokerages. Because again, they solved that need. They act as that arm for a shipper or manufacturer. So again, on the flip side of that, though, too, you have to act as the arm of a salesman for a big trucking company, and you may represent 105 truck lines, as their key salesperson to find them business. So again, those two balancing acts have to go side by side.
Well, finally, you shared previously that you have this crazy habit that you dragged your kids into as well of running. Where did that come from? And do you have anything interesting to share about your experiences out there on the roads?
Yeah. Oh, gosh. It's an interesting story. So, growing up as a kid and playing sports and athletics, is running was always a punishment. And back in 2016, 2017, we had three kids. My oldest was born in 2012. My youngest born in 2015. Um, and again, balance is key for me, right? So you got work-life balance, you got home life, home life balance. So I was telling my wife one day, I said, I need time. I want some time for myself. I wake up, I go to work, come home, I got to be a dad. Um, I got to manage the household. Sometimes, some of the things around it. I said, I need some time to myself. She said, 100%, I'll give you that time. She goes, your time is from 5:30 in the morning to 6:30 in the morning. So in essence, you can't do much between those times. So that's how it started as just walking, and then it turned into running. And I'm never going to be good at it. But again, the idea of challenging myself and getting a little bit better each day has always excited me. So I've done that for a while. And then COVID hit, right? So I just completed a marathon. I loved it, enjoyed it, had a great experience in doing it. And again, like I said, COVID hits, and kind of everything shuts down. And uh, I remembered those first few months of waking up in the morning, going out, putting in 3 to 5 miles, and going back home, showering, going to work, and coming out downstairs or upstairs to eat lunch, going back to work, and going back downstairs, upstairs to eat dinner. And, just the aspect that it got very stale, it got very boring. One of my good friends, he's a extremely talented person. He's owned and operated multiple businesses himself, and his story is amazing. And he we had talked. He had put on a conference for his employees. Just got even more inspiring to do different things and to challenge myself different. We reconnected, and shortly after, in September during COVID of 20, he had found himself drinking a lot and eating a lot like most of us, and doing things that were just unhealthy. And he needed a group of people to hold him accountable, and I got involved in that. And next thing you know, the following year, we're in the mountains of Lake Tahoe running 31 miles in 10,000-foot elevation with obstacles. So I got involved in obstacle course racing. So been doing that, and but it's just a way for me to unwind. I can't throw a baseball anymore. I can't shoot. I can't run very fast. I can't jump. So this is just an opportunity for me to stay healthy, keep some mental health as well. I find it's just a great release from everyday stresses. And I think more people should. It's a hard habit to pick up, but I think like any habit, it's a hard one to put down as well. So it gives me some balance around home. I think it's a good thing for my kids and my family to see. I think a lot of folks don't do these types of things, and we wonder why our healthcare system is so messed up. We wonder why we're fighting an obesity rate and a mental health rate that we never heard of before. And these are fights that we're not winning at this point. So I find that if I can be a good example for my kids, if I can be a good example for my friends or anybody that I come in contact with, I just think it's one of those things that hopefully, I've inspired myself, and I've been inspired by others to get better at, and hopefully I can do the same for others as well, and give them that outlet to release some of the everyday stress.
Well, Jacob, I think that'll do it, man. I do appreciate your time this afternoon.
Absolutely, Tim. Thank you again for having me. I really do appreciate it. It's been great, over the past few months, getting to know you and some of the things that you're doing with your stuff. So again, thank you for the opportunity. Thanks for the time today.
Yes, sir.
This has been a production of Where You At Studios, LLC.